someone to make me feel alright. Somebody help me, yeah. Somebody help me now. Won't somebody tell me what I've done wrong? So, Tabloid Tuesday, the 29th of January, Tuesday, at 8:30 at night. So, Chris, Damien, how's your week been?
Well, I started the week very annoyed at Chris because I want to do Tabloid Tuesday, make a routine out of it, and he just goes, I'm at home with my mum and my dad. So he says I'll be back for 6. We've started this at 8:30, and we originally arranged to meet at 7 but you'd forgotten to put the cooker on. So, and then I ring you, and then you tell me, oh, it's a good enough excuse because I forewarned you about it. But if you were late for work, which this is now, you wouldn't have been able to get away with that as an excuse, would you?
Well, it's some job, I'm doing this for nothing, so essentially...
Yeah, but it's disrespectful, isn't it?
It's a 0 hours contract.
You know a lot about him.
Yeah, but I was away in Lichfield at home, and my mum and dad don't actually...
Is Lichfield in Birmingham?
It's near Birmingham. It's sort of on the sort of periphery of the West Midlands.
Is it in America? Because it's taken you about 7 hours longer than it would normally... This isn't coming out 7 hours later than it normally does.
Well, I'm not really responsible for...
Well, you are, because you were late.
The tasks that I have to do on a...
But this is news, and it has to be contemporary. And it's not, because people are most likely going to see this tomorrow, so they're going to be listening to yesterday's news. So we're 2 weeks in, and you're already grinding the show into obsolescence.
The only thing about newspapers is that they don't tell you today's news, they tell you yesterday's news, because they're obviously printed just after midnight.
Okay. Right, so let's go for the first story. Generation of web addicts. Shocking scale of children's internet obsession revealed. They prefer YouTube to seeing friends. 7 in 10 take phone to bed. Even under 5 spend hours online.
I'm not entirely sure that people value YouTube more than their own friends, because I'd imagine, what are they watching on YouTube aside from BuzzFeed?
SS Sniper Wolf.
I don't know what that is. Maybe DTS Gaming.
Yeah.
Who's just the worst excuse for a gaming YouTube channel there has ever been.
You're not sure the headline's accurate?
I think it's a little bit overstated. I'm not entirely sure that under 5s are spending hours online each day, because if they're under 5, i.e. 4 or below, that means that they're in some form of childcare. So they're either going to a nursery, they're either in private childcare, or they're just starting school.
But if the parents put them in front of the telly as the eternal guardian, and then they send them to a carer or something who's lazy, the parents don't know what the carer's doing, they might just shove them in front of a screen as well to keep them quiet.
Well, I'd seriously question then the value of the care that's being given to them, but this implies that these kids are doing it of their own accord, and I don't think that that's necessarily true. But I'd be very alarmed if it was.
Right. Sorry.
Breaking news. Labour, SNP, Greaves, Cooper and Reeves amendments all been defeated, but the amendment from Dame Caroline Spelman, which rejects the UK leaving the EU without a deal, has been carried by 8 votes. So technically the UK government now opposes leaving the EU without a deal.
This is the ultimate level of disaster now for Brexit. I mean, the whole 2.5 years that the government has tried to be negotiating something, it has now, at the last moment, wiped away the one possibility that could have actually worked for Britain. I mean, this isn't very good at all.
Annie Lennox says, I hug my kids to make up for what I missed out on as a child. Annie Lennox has urged parents to kiss and cuddle their children and ditch their stiff upper lip. The singer, 64, she looks pretty good for 64, don't she? Encouraged mothers and fathers to abandon what she described as their stoic reserve. So, how many hugs and kisses did you get as a child, Chris?
I know that my dad sort of took himself away all the time. So, if anything...
On an affair?
No, like to work and things like that. He just didn't want to be involved. I think this is a bit of a contradiction to the headline story that was around, because surely this is portraying parents as people who...
This is Annie Lennox.
Well, yeah, but I would say that this is a more representative...
Go to the DJ!
I'd say that...
Go to the DJ!
I'd say that this...
Go to the DJ!
I'd say that...
I'll speak to the DJ!
I'd say that this is a more representative view of modern parenting.
Right.
I wouldn't say that it's obviously not just Annie Lennox that's doing this. I'd say that this...
Well, Annie Lennox is a parent in the whole of Britain's children.
No, I mean like the sort of...
But what she's saying is, I hug my kids to make up for what I missed out on. So her being, 60 years ago, 57 years ago, 59 years ago, she's now saying that I am hugging my children because I missed out on the love and affection and the actual maternal instincts that her mother forgot upon her.
All I can say to that is that
she grew up in Scotland as well. I've just read that.
Well, in cases where there's been divorces and things like that, I suppose, you do lose out on this sort of thing, and it's quite sad for people in this situation to not to be brought up with both parents in their immediate surroundings.
Yeah. At the end of the article it says, at the end of the day, global feminism is about the fundamental human rights of girls and women. Why should we continue to tolerate disrespect, abuse and disempowerment?
Right, well, if I knew...
I can do the DJ!
If I knew that this was going to be... if I knew that this was going to be all about feminism, there's no need to end it on a feminist argument. The thing about feminism is that today it's completely transmogrified from what it was all about in the 1970s, up to the 1970s.
She says she's not had a Botox or surgery. She says she doesn't judge women that have had cosmetic surgery, because they might get a perfectly legitimate psychological boost.
Well, this is not a healthy way to think about things. I mean, surely, if women stopped referring to the media as their reference point for physical attraction, they might actually realise that beauty is a lot more than a pretty face.
Yep. And these people definitely didn't have a pretty face. Shoppers in plunging lift for 40 minutes. Being trapped in a broken down lift is bad enough, but more than a dozen shoppers faced an even worse fate as they were shunted up and down more than 25 times over a terrifying 40 minutes.
Well, forgive my understanding of the
lift
story. Well, for the headline of this story, a lift cannot plunge for 40 minutes, technically.
No, it's saying that it repeatedly went up and then plunged back down again.
Yeah, but it says shoppers in plunging lift for 40 minutes.
It's the Daily Mail.
Have you ever had to unclog a toilet or a sink? You get a plunger, up, down, not just down for 40 minutes.
Yes, but plunge. To plunge means to decline, essentially.
It also means an aggressive first thrust during sexual intercourse.
So what was the content of the story? Because I've forgotten.
A dozen shoppers faced a fate as they were shunted up and down more than 25 times over 40 terrifying minutes.
So one, why?
Because the lift was broken.
Yeah, but if it was going up and down, then
Well, I think they mean it was going up and falling down. It wasn't. You know when the battery's low on a clock and it goes up, ticks up, and then just falls. I think that's that's what was happening.
And this happened for 40 minutes. I'm quite surprised that it's lasted for that long. I
don't think they could get out though.
Yeah, but surely attempts must have been made to sort of get.
But you can't get out of the lift when it's.
Yeah, you can stop the mechanisms, surely.
What, from the inside?
No, from the outside. Like
if no one's aware of it.
A lift up. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It took them 40 minutes to make someone aware of what was happening.
But the bell thing, the bell button might not have worked, which is something that terrifies a lot of people that are scared of lifts.
So use
the only method of getting out is an electronic button that's been bashed and worn for years.
Use your phone and ring up.
You can't ring on a phone. You got in a lift. You've got no signal.
I've rang people up in a lift.
Yeah, but not everyone can.
Well, then they should have a better network then.
But it's a bit hard to call the phone shop if you've got no signal and upgrade when you're in a broken lift.
Well, you should prepare for everything, and frankly, if you haven't got the right phone network, you're at a loss in this situation.
If you were in a plunging lift, what would your thoughts be?
So if I was in a lift that was constantly going up and down...
No, just for this sake of argument, say it's the Empire State Building lift and you're plunging to the bottom. What do you think in those brief seconds as you...
I've got left to live?
Yeah, and you're in a plunging lift. Would you say things are looking down?
I'd just be thinking about just hoping that my imminent death would be a quick one.
Do you think it's true that if you jump at the bottom, you survive?
I would say that the amount of floors that you're going down would have some sort of an impact on that, because obviously once you reach terminal velocity in the lift, the chances of survival are a lot less than if you've just dropped one floor from in a small office block.
No, but the idea is because as the lift drops down,
it does.
You jump at the last possible moment and then you just bounce up and down like you were actually just jumping in the air because you're countering the falling.
I mean, possibly, but it depends whether...
Can I please fact check this? Actually, since momentum is mass times velocity, the faster you're going when you hit the ground, the more force you'll feel, and the more it will hurt. If the elevator has been falling for a while, then it's probably moving very fast. If you jump up, then you'll change your velocity just a little bit. So you'll be going a tiny bit slower when you hit the ground. So technically speaking, you would probably not hurt quite as much, but this difference will be so small, so noticeable. If you're falling so fast as to be killed in a fall, jumping would most likely not make any difference. And that's from the Departments of Physics from University of Illinois.
Well, there we go then.
So not hurt quite as much. In other words, you won't die quite so much if you're in a...
It might make that little bit of difference. So instead of being dead, you'd be paralysed.
And how fast and how high it is.
It depends whether or not your family can see you in your own coffin at your funeral.
Also, can I just stress, there's people aren't saying the elephant in the room. I'm not saying there's a fat person on this elevator, but there's 12 people in a lift. And where was it department?
That's usually the maximum capacity.
Yeah.
And
It's a breach of maximum capacity.
And not all lifts even display maximum capacity.
So, Chris, would you say that if there was 12 people, say there's 11 people, and a person of quite girthy size came on,
He raised his eyebrows there in a sexual way when he said that word.
Do you think that last person should think, hold on a minute, do I count as 2 people and should have not gotten on the lift?
I think that if they were a considerate person, they should do what's beneficial for their own health and actually take the stairs.
What if they're going downstairs?
Then it's even easier.
Surely the blame lies with the people who got on last.
Well, not necessarily.
But if they can see it's already overcrowded and there's a big geezer in the lift, they've run the risk and cost all their lives.
But you identified the point that the maximum capacity is not necessarily displayed. So how do you know that these people were informed of what the maximum capacity was? And if they weren't, then they would be oblivious to know.
There's a high possibility they were blindly oblivious that lifts even have maximum capacities.
For a 12-person lift, that lift must have been a huge meter squared floor. Most lifts are usually 6 to 8. but that's still 6 to 8 people's worth of weight, and not size in how much they take up, how much room.
I think, obviously, like where we are at this university, in the Newton building, there are several lifts, so that overcrowding is not so much of an issue, and therefore, what company was this? Was it a hotel or something? Or?
I'll go back and check.
Council, I think.
Liverpool Council.
It doesn't. It was a shopping centre in Cardiff.
A shopping centre in Cardiff, right.
Where'd Ben got that idea from?
I must have been reading a different article.
So if it's a shopping centre in Cardiff, it couldn't be that tall. But even so, even here at this university, we have several lifts in operation, so that overcrowding and potential breaches of maximum...
What's your opinion on the lifts?
Well, not all of them work, so it's a bit disappointing when they...
We've got a story, sort of boring story about Michael Douglas and what's her name? Glenn Close. The story is not particularly interesting. It's more of a comparison of them in the film Fatal Attraction in 1987 and then at some boring award ceremony this year. But Ben had a point about Michael Douglas, or more his ex-wife Catherine Zeta-Jones.
No, his current wife.
Oh, he's still going out with her?
Yeah, he's still married to Catherine Zeta-Jones. Sadly, Michael Douglas had contracted, not contracted, he had been diagnosed with throat cancer, and Michael Douglas famously said that the reason why he got throat cancer was for his love and passion for oral sex, of him with his being expertise of cunnilingus on his current Welsh wife, Catherine Zeta-Jones. Chris, what do you feel about cunnilingus, and do you think it's an actual expertise, or...?
I'll come down very heavily on one side of this.
I'm probably not the best person to ask.
Why?
For a variety of reasons. I think that what does or doesn't happen in my own life, it really shouldn't be brought into this conversation.
Look at her. Look at Catherine Zeta-Jones in that dress.
Yeah.
Would you lick her out?
No.
Why?
She's Welsh, is that why?
Oh well, yeah, she's Welsh. That'll do.
You've just given him a bailout option there.
No, that's racist.
So
no, it's nationalist. It's not racist, surely. Because Wales is only a nation. It's not itself a country.
Right. I just wanted to clarify with the throat cancer and oral sex thing.
Yes.
So he's claiming that him giving oral pleasure to women
With his wife
cured him of his wife. Sorry, of his wife. Yeah, I don't want to be libelous.
caused him giving oral sex to his wife caused the throat cancer.
I heard a story a while ago.
Go on.
About someone who poisoned their vajayjay and
Can't even say it.
and got
Save the word vagina.
they poisoned it and basically forced the boyfriend or whatever to perform oral sex on her, and as a result he became very ill. So
That's funny you mentioned that. I saw a video of a guy that, this morning. He gave cunnilingus for the first time in his life. It wasn't the first time he had sex or anything, but he got an eye infection the morning after.
is that chlamydia, perhaps?
A what?
It could be chlamydia.
Well, it could be.
So this could be a variety of things. I think the most important thing to take from this is there a link between a sexually transmitted disease and various forms of cancer?
So going back to Ben's original question, that was a very interesting point, Chris. Going back to Ben's original question, is it a skill? Cunnilingus.
Again, I don't think that I'm the right person to ask.
Have you not done any research in this?
I have done some research, yes, and
Did Heinrich Himmler do oral sex? He always had a bad cough though, didn't he? So a bad chest, so maybe not. It just requires some breath control
If you consider sucking up to Hitler a form of cunnilingus, then perhaps.
No. It's not sucking.
It's only in a metaphorical sense.
No, it's not sucking when you're doing it to a woman. It's licking.
Yeah, you don't suck.
Well,
you don't suck at all.
You gave the example of Hitler and Himmler.
But you should have said licked Hitler's boots, not sucked Hitler.
Well, no.
So now you've added an element of your own imagination to what Himmler was doing. Heinrich Himmler.
I only read a BBC article on him, so my information is inherently anti-Semitic on this issue.
He's had a pop at the BBC. This is the second week in a row now. It's a nice consistent part of the show, ripping into the BBC. It was paedophiles last week, and it's Nazis this
Their articles, yeah.
So they're Nazi paedophiles.
Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. I mean, the Nazis were National Socialists, and the BBC is left-wing.
Right, okay, so we're on to page 12. And so, tell-all letter by speedboat killer to family of his victim. Speedboat killer Jack Shepherd has written a letter to his victim's family in which he claims, probably his lawyers, which he claims to reveal what really happened on the night of Charlotte Brown's death. Shepherd left a note with a close friend shortly before handing himself into the police in Georgia last week. Do you like speedboats?
All I remember was that the one and only time I've been abroad so far in my life was to Menorca in the year 2000. I remember that my dad, my mum and I went out on a speedboat and started zooming around. And we obviously never ridden on a speedboat before. We didn't really know how to control it. And eventually my dad beached us on a load of rocks, and it took us about half an hour to get free of the rocks and to sort of head back.
So there's an element of danger in this story, really, isn't there? That perhaps being in Georgia, there aren't, because I can't imagine you'd be able to get away with driving a speedboat without any qualifications or anything in Britain. Yeah, in Britain. So is she somewhat at fault for not being aware that there's sort of people driving around speedboats, not really knowing what they're doing?
I think where you've got to exercise a degree of caution.
Particularly, what if a speedboat's coming at 70 miles an hour? It's hard to be cautious.
Well, just lie on the ground and just hope for the best.
You should have bombed or gone down under the water.
What do you mean?
Well,
she was in the water.
Well, if you were in a swimming pool, right, and it was, instead of water, it was urine, right?
Yeah, but hold on
no,
a minute.
No, because
this is one of these scenarios that is just completely abstract, and
it's not abstract. No. There is a parallel. No, there is a parallel. I haven't even said the scenario to you yet.
Suggesting people urinate in swimming pools.
No, I'm suggesting it's an entire swimming pool of urine, right? And then you'll understand the metaphor of the speedboat coming up to you. Someone comes with a lot, those big sort of bendy buckets that you use for cement, those industrial buckets. Someone comes with an industrial bucket of shit to pour on top of your head. Do you duck down and get your head covered in piss, or do you keep your head up and take the shit?
You obviously go down into the water, into the urine. So that's a no.
Why is it obvious?
Because you don't want shit all over you, to be perfectly honest.
But do you want piss all over you?
You're swimming in it right now.
Right.
In this scenario, so
to revert,
all you're doing is just taking it a little stage further. Whereas if you're getting excrement flung in your face, that's taking it to a whole different level, because then you've got
an experience, don't it?
Yeah, but then you've got both fecal matter and
the piss would wash it off, so you can both get the experience and be none the dirtier.
I think I understand Chris's point of view, because obviously if you're already swimming in the piss, you're then...
It can't get much worse.
Oh yeah, no.
You're already...
No, I do actually agree. I was just playing devil's advocate. So,
with a scenario about piss and shit.
No, because the scenario relates directly to this. Do you duck down into the dirty seawater, or do you get hit by a speedboat? The options are a little bit... Yeah, they're a little bit more obvious choices here.
Yeah, the seawater is obviously a lot cleaner than urine. And this is
well, I don't know about that.
This is not a bucket of.
Do you know what the Georgian sea's like?
Well, she was in it.
Well,
this is the thing. What?
Look at her face.
What about it? What's going on?
Would you throw shit at that face? Would you throw shit at that face?
Yeah, but that's not the scenario, and this is...
And it would be very disrespectful to comment on such a question.
Yeah. Don't agree with this.
Right, so we're going over to page 22. It's been a slow news day. Nursery student, 17, jailed for abusing toddlers. Fuck's sake. Abusing toddlers in her care. A teenage... It's that word that makes me laugh every time I read it.
What?
A teenage paedophile used the trust placed... Fuck's sake. A nursery worker... I'll start again. A teenage paedophile used the trust placed in her as a nursery worker to abuse children. Sophie Elms was jailed yesterday for molesting sisters aged 2 and 3 years old when she was 17. She carried out the attacks after a sex offender contacted her online and incited her to abuse the children and send him indecent pictures. He has been jailed for 15 years.
So, this is obviously someone who's caring for the under 5-year-old.
Caring for them very well.
Yeah,
And we saw a story earlier about how most under 5-year-olds are sitting there online and watching YouTube all the time. Well, this story contradicts that, and it's quite...
How does it contradict it?
Well, because instead of watching YouTube, they're getting molested by this woman.
But as the story says, she found somebody online, then took pictures of the kids and sent it.
Oh, he's right.
So if you're saying that actually this contradicts it, so these people this person doesn't use her phone a lot.
No, I was talking about YouTube and the activities there. This is obviously not on YouTube.
No, of course, her paedophilic rapes and sexual, evil. Yeah, I cannot even fathom it into words. The monstrosity of her face and what she's done.
And for listeners, she looks like Shrek cross between Chris Wilkinson.
Imagine Shrek number 1, where actually imagine Shrek number 1, where Princess Fiona turns into
The ogre version.
ogre, but she does not change colour. That's it. So she changes.
Yeah, that's a good comparison, isn't it? Have you seen Shrek?
Yeah, I have, yeah. I know what you're on about, yeah. That is accurate. Yeah, I'd say that's accurate. What is there to say about this? I think the interesting thing is the fact that she's 17, technically, in the eyes of the law, she is not an adult. So it'd be very interesting. No, it's 18, isn't it?
No, the age of consent is 16.
Yeah, but
He looks so shocked then, like he'd fucking...
What are you talking about?
No.
The age of...
You're legally recognised as an adult properly.
No, the age I'm saying the age in which you can consent to sex is 16.
This is... Yeah, but that's why it's illegal. But
She's recognised sexually as an adult, as far as I know, and they're toddlers, so even if you were 16, it'd be pretty fucking evil to...
Yeah, but I'm just interested to know how the law is going to treat this while not technically being over the age of 18, which is what you would think that the typical pervert...
Well, the language of Detective Inspector Simon Child... Jesus, imagine having that surname when you're investigating stuff like this. Well, it's Child with an E at the end, so... It says here... and it sounds like she is going to be tried as a woman, because it says, after sentencing, Detective Inspector Simon Child said Elms is one of the youngest women, not girls, in the country to be convicted of these types of offences, and at the time of committing them, she was studying childcare with a long-term aim of working with very, 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 very young children. It doesn't say that many varies, but I'm just adding effect.
Yeah, I mean, all this behaviour is quite disgusting. You've got to think, like, what makes people do this sort of thing? Because is it out of sheer desperation for...
As the story said, she got talked to by a paedophile.
Yeah, but how does it get to this point? That's what happened, but how does it get there?
And looking at her face in that mugshot, it doesn't look like she got bribed or not bribed, bullied into.
It looks as though she won't be having sex for at least 40 years.
I don't think she ever has had sex. She doesn't look like. But what my point is she doesn't look like she regrets it. It doesn't look like she was.
She looks complacent. That's yeah.
No, I was going to say.
Indifferent.
No, she looks like she's, viewers. She's looking down. Obviously the camera is below her. She's got a double chin, but she's looking down at the camera as sort of a kind of a metaphorical. I'm looking down upon you. You know, you are what. I'm still better than you.
Well, the picture caption is sinister and calculating. That's the picture.
She should just be 7 foot, and that's why she's looking down at the camera.
Well, possibly.
But but there's nothing to suggest in her demeanour that she looks like she was forced into it by this other paedophile. It looks like she was quite happy to do it.
Yeah, but again, how it gets to this point is it's bizarre. Probably too much internet, you know.
Yeah.
If she wasn't connected to the internet, this wouldn't have happened.
So the final story. Well, it's not really a story because it's just another sort of made-up speculation on Meghan Markle and Kate Middleton's relationship together.
Daily Mail story there.
Daily Mail story. But I just wanted to ask your opinions generally on Meghan Markle because when she came into the limelight as the girlfriend of Prince Harry, I was all for it. She seemed really nice and polite and courteous and everything that you'd want a royal to be. But I'm sick of her now, and she just every time I see her, she just winds me up. And there was the thing about she's an actress, so I think it comes with the territory really. But she's constantly holding a baby lump, and she does that. She does that annoying.
Woman's holding her bum.
No, but she's always holding it in photographs, and she always does that smile with her tongue behind her teeth, and it just winds me up now.
Watched. I think there was a Daily. Are we actually listening to? No, there was a Daily Express article about this on Twitter. I think it's online, but maybe on print as well. But the Daily Express headline was something like to the words of effect, Meghan Markle. You know, why does she keep promoting her bump and she keeps holding and bumping all the pictures? I think that if you can't hold your belly as a pregnant woman, and I think
all the time on camera.
All the time on camera. I'm not being funny, but she's on camera 24/7 because she's a royal. So I'm sure there's not going to be any time which there is not a camera.
So actresses don't like the limelight, is what you're saying?
No, but what you're saying as a man, that a woman holding a belly because a baby's growing inside.
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay,
I'm just saying I'm sick of seeing it.
There is one parallel here. The sinister Sophie Elms or whatever would also be holding a bump, but that's mostly because she's eaten too many gherkins because she's too big.
Strange word for gherkins there. That pretty much concludes Tabloid Tuesday.
The only thing that I would say about Meghan Markle is I think the fact that she's an actor.
Actress.
No.
There is an element of falsity in her countenance, isn't there?
Even gender equality, it's actor.
Actress.
No, it's
actress.
It's actor. It's actor.
What, is she a bloke?
Actor is a general term.
Yeah. We're not talking about generally talking about. We're talking about her. She's an actress.
No, but the point is obviously there's probably a degree of superficial behaviour, and she comes across as a bit fake.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I always thought about her, and
But I didn't think of it at first. I think maybe it's just the constant media attention has irritated me more than her herself. But she did start whining to Harry about going for his Boxing Day hunt, which I think if you're going to sort of espouse progressive values, then why would you marry into the royal family?
Weirdly, there is a lot of parallels between Meghan Markle and Princess Diana, and
how?
Well, the sort of the sheer media focus.
Yeah.
You know, the media you don't hear about Wills and Kate anymore.
No, you don't.
It's Harry and Meghan.
Yeah.
And I believe that this is going to turn into a new Charles and Diana thing.
Where do you think the assassination will take place? Beirut?
Qatar or something like that.
Qatar?
Yeah.
At the World Cup?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, it's good. Well, right, that concludes the Tabloid Tuesday.